To understand the Red Beasts or the final revived Roman Empire's plan for complete world domination by the Comintern or Communist International, we must roll back the clock 40 years to early 1980s, when the Soviet Union was at the peak of its power under Brezhnev, with its proxy Afghanistan as his latest annexation in the Soviet intervention and subsequent invasion of the country in 1979. A third of the world's nations yesterday were either communist or socialist because of the expansionist and hegemonistic foreign policies of the Red Beast of Soviet Russia, acting by its Marxist-Leninist ideological pawns and proxies, which is also identified as the end-time Third Rome Moscow or Imperial Roman Empire of the socialist communists, successors of the TSARS of Russia. Now come to the reality of the present as of May 2022 today. Socialism and communism is not dead as it appears to be in Russia, the land of its Marxist-Leninist origin. Here are a few surviving and thriving Red Terror states of today, led by its authoritarian leaders who generally are antagonistic towards all religions because of their atheistic and godless beliefs, and especially towards the West and Christianity, and is absolutely against the Christian Church in particular, whether nominal or genuine Christians. 1. The People's Republic of China, led by President Xi Jinping, who is also the General Secretary of the CCP or the Chinese Communist Party. 2. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea or Red North Korea, led by the dear leader Kim Jong-un, its supreme leader nicknamed the Marshal, who is also the General Secretary of the WPK or Workers' Party of Korea. 3. The Socialist Republic of Vietnam, led by its current president Nguyen Xuan Phuc, who succeeded President Nguyen Phu Trong, the de facto leader and secretary of the Communist Party of Vietnam or CPV in 2021. 4. The Lao People's Democratic Republic, led by President Thongloun Sisulit and General Secretary of the LPRP or Laos People's Revolutionary Party Central Committee. 5. The Kingdom of Cambodia, led by Prime Minister Hun Sen, whose Cambodian People's Party with Norodom Sihamoni, the son of Sihanouk, is the successor socialist party to the People's Republic of Kampuchea, PRK, which was pro-Vietnam and pro-Soviet, which invaded the so-called Democratic Kampuchea of the Khmer Rouge and deposed the mass killer Pol Pot, the chairman of the Communist Party of Kampuchea, which was pro-China. Prime Minister Hun Sen is also the president of the CPP or Cambodian People's Party. 6. The Republic of Cuba, now as of May 2022, led by its President Miguel Diaz-Canel and the first Secretary General of the PCC or the Party Communist of Cuba, founded by the late Fidel Castro. 7. The Republic of the Union of Myanmar, led by the military junta chief, Minit Aung Hlaing, supported by the USDP or Union of Solidarity and Development Party, who put his main political rival State Councillor Aung San Suu Kyi and her National League for Democracy or the NLD party leaders under illegal house arrest and expelled all its party leaders as members of the parliament in February 2021. Burma had been under military rule of the Union Revolutionary Council from 1962 to 2022, starting from General Ne Win, who took control of Burma in a coup d'etat and turned it into a democratic socialist state following the Burmese way to socialism of the SPP or Burma Socialist Program Party, modeled after the Marxist-Leninist style Revolutionary Party or the Soviet-style nationalism and central planning. 8. The Republic of Nicaragua, led by President Daniel Ortega, who is also the president of the Socialist Front for the Liberation of Nicaragua or FSLN, otherwise known as the Sandinista Party. 9. The Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, led by its current president Nicolas Maduro of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela or PSUV, succeeding Hugo Chávez after his death in 2013. unveiled. I will tell you of the mystery of the red beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns. The red beast that you saw was, meaning it existed before as the Greek Empire, and is not. That is, it had fallen in 95 AD when John wrote the book of Revelation, and it will ascend out of the abyss or be revived again as the Red Communist Empire of Russia and go to perdition. And those who dwell on the earth will marvel, whose names are not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the red beast that was, and is not, and yet is. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits, meaning dominates or controls, not meaning her location. They are also 7 kings or kingdoms or world-ruling empires. 5 have fallen, which are Syria, Egypt, Babylon, Persia, Greece. 1 is which was Rome, existing then as the 6th world power in 95 AD as John wrote Revelation. And the other has not yet come, which was Europe. And when he comes he must continue a short time. The red beast that was, and is not, is himself also the 8th king or kingdom or empire, which is Red Russia, and is out of the 7 empires, namely the 5th which was Greece or Alexander the Great Greco-Macedonian Empire, and is going to perdition. The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings or monarchs or royal rulers who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the red beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the red beast. These will make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb will overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and those who are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. Revelation 17:7-15. Notice carefully that the beast in Revelation 17 and 18 is red in color. In Greek it is kokkinon, which means scarlet, crimson or blood red, and not pyros, which is fiery red, the amber red color of flames or fire. So this evil empire can be identified by the color of the blood of innocent victims it has killed, executed, massacred and murdered, like the great purple and scarlet whore, Babylon, the great city, who rides or dominates and will control, even blackmail this last world empire for a while in the end times with her wealth and riches in black gold, which is her Middle East oil and gas supply. The 8th head or kingdom or empire is the red beast itself, and it is of the 7. That is, it originated from out of the 7 past world powers, or precisely the 5th head or kingdom, which was the Greco-Macedonian head or empire, defeated and slain by Rome, the 6th world power. It may well be a communist union of Socialist Russian Federation, KZARS or USRF. In English letters. In Russian, KCCPH, which is abbreviation for Коммунистическая Социалистская Российская Федерация, or short in for English letters, CPRF, revived by the Communist Party of the Russian Federation. This new Communist Party was reformed in 1992 by 4 times presidential hopeful, Gennady Zyuganov. In Russian, it is called Коммунистическая Партия Российской Федерации, known by the 4 Cyrillic letters KPRPH emblazoned on her new red flag or banner. The old Soviet Communist Party, founded by Vladimir Lenin in 1917 October Revolution, was called Коммунистическая партия Советского Союза, or the Communist Party of the Soviet Union. Thus the 8th head is the Red Beast, or CCCP 2.0, under the new name of CCRF, which was, and is not, yet is present or will ascend out of the abyss. But after her short-lived revival and union for 1 hour only, together with the 10 Roman crowned horns, or 5 EU monarchs plus 5 MU sultans from an end-time revived Roman Empire, they are all going into perdition or destruction in eternal hellfire at the return of Jesus Christ at Armageddon. Thus is the final doom and ignominious end, with no one to help him, of the Red Tsar, which is Russian for Caesar, prophesied by the prophet Daniel as the fierce-faced king of the north, or the little horn of Greek origin but also Roman connections, who will be broken without human hand or agency. The dead red beast of the Soviet Union, or USSR, or CCCP, is now being remembered, reformed, and may soon be revived again as the CCRF, or the Union of Socialist Russian Federation. The Antichrist beast or person, The man of sin and the son of perdition may soon emerge and arise out of this Communist Socialist Party of the Russian Federation or the CPRF shortly.
Today, Russians mark the 100-year anniversary of the October Revolution, the Bolshevik uprising that started in Petrograd, modern-day St. Petersburg, and introduced communism to the world. 26 years after the collapse of the USSR, the Communist Party is the second largest in Russia, technically. And its aging leadership is working to bolster its ranks with a new generation of young comrades.
Revolution! No solution! Revolution! No!
100 years on from the revolution, this is what the Russian Communist Party looks like. Gennady Zyuganov has led the party for 25 years. He's run in 4 presidential elections, twice against Vladimir Putin, and come in second every time. If the communists really want to threaten Putin's united Russia in the elections next March, they're going to have to win over a generation of young people who never lived under communism. This is why Zyuganov went to the World Festival of Youth and Students, which this year was held in the Russian coastal resort of Sochi. Held once every 4 years and attended by 25,000 young people from 150 countries, this conference is a bit like a student politics Olympics. There's socialist branding everywhere, and a lot of young Russian communists. The Communist Party says around 40% of its 160,000 members are under 35. The Komsomol, the party's youth group, claims 20,000 members between the age of 18 and 35. We met Borislav Kosatkin at a party celebrating the festival's opening night. An out-of-work dancer and former soldier, Borislav joined the Komsomol 2 years ago. He's a committed communist.
So, how many people here would you say are communists?
Ну, не знаю, трудно сказать. Обычно в толпе не сильно заметно. Только если форма, как у меня.
How would you go about convincing a lot of the young people who are here that the Communist Party is the people that they should be supporting?
Люди сами должны к этому прийти. Вот я раньше тоже никакую идеологию не поддерживал, потом меня вдруг осенило. Я стал интересоваться историей сначала своей страны, СССР и всего остального. Смотрел, потом увидел, что, оказывается, все было совсем не так, как нам рассказывали. Ведь основная цель коммунистов – это построение светлого будущего.
When was like the golden age of communism in Russia?
Ой, я не знаю. Это спорный вопрос на самом деле. Каждая эпоха, она по-своему уникальна. Но я думаю, что самый расцвет все-таки пришелся на 70-е, на 80-е, в эпоху Брежнева.
The next day, Borislav marched in solidarity with his comrades through the Olympic Park.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Yes.
Viva Revolution.
We are comrades. Revolution, yes, comrades.
They were heading to hear Zyuganov speak, but some of these younger members feel their grey leaders are failing not only to deliver a classless, stateless society, but provide any genuine opposition to Putin. Zyuganov has voiced support for the church and doesn't criticize the president publicly. Instead, he's backed Putin on crucial issues like the annexation of Crimea. This Communist Party plays by the Kremlin's rules, offering a harmless alternative for Russian voters who missed the USSR.
Но когда меня вызывает небольшое отвращение, когда лидеры нашей компартии встречаются с лидерами Единой России, с лидерами церкви, я считаю, что это недопустимо. Но, к сожалению, лидера пора менять уже. Нужно стать более перспективного, молодого.
The Russian Federation, Comrade Gennady Zyuganov.
But Zyuganov has no intention of stepping aside for fresh blood.
Идеалы Великого Октября и готовясь к столетию, еще раз заявляем, Наше дело правое, социализм будет построен.
After warming up the crowd, he gave over to some special guests from North Korea. Even Che Guevara's daughter made an appearance. When we finally caught up with him at the conference, we asked what the key issues of his fifth presidential campaign would be.
Солидарность, поддержка молодежи.
Do you think he will have a good chance of beating Putin or his successor?
Пойдемте с молодежью.
Even the young diehards of the Komsomol aren't overly enthusiastic about Zyganov's chances.
Он все-таки фигура узнаваемая, и некоторые люди уже привыкли. То есть, я думаю, что люди, которые за него голосовали до этого, проголосуют за него еще раз.
But do you actually think the communists have any chance of winning an election?
Но всегда стремиться к своей цели, не останавливаться. Но я надеюсь, что получится.
100 years ago today, the world unquestionably changed. The Bolshevik Revolution set the course for the next 70 years of history. The anniversary used to be a public holiday, but today's festivities are not supported by the Kremlin. And for Vladimir Putin, it's business as usual. Our Moscow correspondent Chris Brown explains why.
Well, I'm on Tverskaya Street in downtown Moscow, and really the scene here is like something out of another era. They're celebrating 100 years since the Russian Revolution. You can hear lots of patriotic Russian songs. There's busts of Vladimir Lenin. Stalin's around here as well. And in fact, there's countries all around the world that have communist parties that have sent different representatives here. And what's interesting today is that really this is only organized by Russia's Communist Party. This isn't organized by Russia's government, and it really reflects a very ambiguous relationship that Vladimir Putin and his administration have with this particular anniversary. Earlier today, one of his chief spokespersons was asked, why aren't there more events commemorating the anniversary? And his answer was, there's nothing to commemorate. So for Putin, who's spoken about this, it seems to be, yes, celebrate the Soviet Union, yes, celebrate the fact it was a superpower and Nazi Germany was defeated by it, but let's not dwell on the idea of revolutions and revolutionaries overthrowing a government. That's something perhaps that a more authoritarian government would want to avoid. So instead, this large gathering, several thousands in fact, is headed off to Revolution Square. Earlier today, the official ceremony that happened in Red Square had nothing to do with the revolution. It was in fact a parade commemorating 1941 and an event involving Nazi Germany, which is far safer ground for the government here. Chris Brown, CBC News, Moscow.
With parliamentary elections less than 6 months away, authorities are cracking down on Kremlin critics. But they could be facing new threats, including from within the traditionally loyal Communist Party. DW's Emily Sherwin traveled to the southwestern city of Saratov, where she met a local politician who was determined not to be silenced.
In the footsteps of Lenin.
The last world empire is the eighth head of the Red Beast, prophesied to be dominated by the Great City. Babylon's idolatrous religious worship and corrupt practices, blackmailed and controlled by her economic and trade supply in oil and gas. It is the Red Russian CZARS, or SARS, who is the same as Gog of the land of Magog's evil empire from the far north. He will invade and try to control the whole world, first Europe, then the Middle East, and Jerusalem, Israel, and finally the rebuilt new city named Babylon the Great by the biblical prophets, which have by then had arisen to become a great, strong megapolis, an economic and world trade center. Great Babylon symbolized as a prostitute dressed in purple and scarlet, adorned with pearls and precious gemstones, with a golden cup of abominations in her hand, will rise again to become a corrupt and filthy rich, wealthy and luxurious city because of her oil and gas deposits in the desert sands of Iraq, the black gold which the red Antichrist beast will desire to possess for his massive military forces. The little horn, or the 11th one, is connected with the 10 horns or kings which shall arise out of the head of the fourth dreadful, terrifying looking and very strong beast, which is a symbol for the Roman Empire in Daniel chapter 7. This little horn or king or kingdom of Greek origin, as Daniel explains later in chapter 8, will arise later amongst the 10 Roman horns or kings and will subdue or uproot 3 of the former kings or kingdoms of the 5 plus 5 or equals to 10 Euro-Mediterranean Union nations who will refuse to bow down or submit to his will or be under his sovereign rule. Then, all the 10 nations, comprising of 5 EU monarchs and 5 MU sultans, will out of fear, with one mind, or unanimously submit themselves and give their power and authority to him as the supreme leader, for he is a fierce-faced dictator whose appearance looks stouter than the rest. He will then enter Israel, the pleasant land, in the middle of the 70th week of Daniel, breaking the 7 years peace treaty after 3.5 years that he had earlier made with the nation of Israel in Daniel 9. He will invade the pleasant land as predicted in Ezekiel 38 and 39 and Micah 5 as the Assyrian from Syria and northern Iraq in the end-time invasion of Gog, the prince of Rosh, Russia, and Meshech, Turkey, and of Tubal, spelled as Tubal, the Caucasian nations like Georgia, whose capital is spelled Tbilisi, Tbilisi, Azerbaijan, Chechnya, etc., Persia or Iran, and probably including Afghanistan, Goma or Turkey, or probably Germany, House of Tagama, likely the ex-Soviet Central Asian Islamic Stan Turkic republics like Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, etc., etc. Together as a northern coalition of the Red Antichrist beast's military forces, they will invade Israel, overflow and pass over the Middle East and from there into Egypt and North Africa. The Red Tsar will overthrow the pro-US and pro-Western government of Cairo, Egypt, in an attempt to paint the whole continent red in the color of communism. While in Egypt, he will hear disturbing news from the north which will alarm him that the short-lived northwestern European Axis forces had broken apart by the Allied forces led by Britain and the US, which are now coming against him. And also alarming to him while he is in Egypt, the reports from the east, China and the other kings from the east of Asia are amassing a 200 million men, infantry and military forces to come against him at Armageddon. So he is forced to return to Jerusalem, which had by then fallen to him, with Put, Libya or the Libyans, and Kush, Sudan or the Kushims or Sudanese marching at his heels. So he will pitch his palatial tents between the Mediterranean Sea and the Dead Sea at the Holy Mountain or Temple Mount. But he will come to his end with no one to assist him. Thus his ambition to paint the whole dark African continent and the then entire world in red as the 8th or last world empire under communism, allied with 10 new kings and sultans, is for a short time only. For it will be thwarted by the opposing forces from the west and the east gathered at the plain and foot of the hill of Megiddo, or Harmageddon Israel, and finally by the heavenly forces of the saints and angels of the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings at the victorious return of Christ himself from heaven to the earth in Jerusalem to destroy him. The World Union of Socialist Federation, which originated from Marxist-Lenin Soviet Russia. From the Communist Party of the USSR that controlled Russia and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which influence a third part of the world, which grew very strong towards the south, to the North African socialist nations like Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Ethiopia, and Central African nations like Angola, Benin, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Mozambique and Madagascar, and even unto a party of South Africa with its Marxist-Leninist ideology parties, and likewise towards the East, the Orient or Asia, until Red China, North Korea, North and South Vietnam, Laos, Kampuchea, Nepal, the Kerala state in India, Burma which fell under its spell, with Indonesia, Thailand and British Malaya almost falling like dominoes too, and with the anti-government strikes and riots we are witnessing now in 2022 in Sri Lanka, former Ceylon, This former superpower or the ex-Soviet Union has grown and is still growing very great in its influence towards the Middle East via Iran, Turkey, former Afghanistan, Syria, North Yemen, and finally in the future to Israel and Jerusalem and the Temple Mount as predicted by the prophet Daniel in his 70 weeks prophecy in chapters 8, 9 and 11. Will the newly reformed Communist Party of the Russian Federation or CPRF revived by 4 times presidential hopeful, its party secretary general, Gennady Zhudanov, who always turned up second to President Boris Yeltsin in the first and second round of the 1996 presidential elections, to President Putin in 2000, and to President Dmitry Medvedev in 2012 fulfill the communist grand vision of world domination by its red terror unleashed on the tribulation saints predicted in Bible prophesies. Bull's-eyed? Zhudanov did not run for the 2018 presidential elections against President Putin but instead put Pavel Grudnin in his place, who like his predecessor turned up second with 11.9% of the votes to Putin's 77.53%. Will this revived CCCP 2.0 form the Red Antichrist Beast's bloody evil empire of the end time in the last days of the future? Will another Red October revolution, or another coup d'etat erupt again in Russia? Watch the coming political upheavals in Russia, the ex-Soviet Union, and be daily on the red alert, saints and Christian friends. The world's communist bloc nations. The potential socialist communist nations that could be the first to be a part of or allied with the future Red Beast's evil empire. They are from Asia right to left: China, North Korea, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka and India. From the left in Africa, Mauritania, Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, Egypt, Sudan, Congo, Angola, Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Senegal, Mozambique, Ethiopia, and Madagascar. All 10 kingdoms from the European and the Mediterranean Union after 3 of the first kingdoms have been invaded and eliminated. From the Middle East they are Syria, Iraq, Israel, Turkey, and South Yemen. And from South America, they are Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Chile, and Bolivia. Most of all these socialist or communist nations have in the past been the Red Beast's pawns, proxies and allies in the Cold War of the Red Beast against the free democratic and capitalistic nations of the West.